Hello everyone, Cindy here with Monarch Mom DIY. Thank you so much for joining me today on my channel where I love to bring you the best tips and tools for creating beautiful home decor on a budget. Today I am back with my second Christmas in July video for 2022. I have 6 more projects for you that you can make for Christmas with supplies that are available pretty much year round. So with all that being said, let's get crafting. For today's first DIY, we're making a star tree. I'm using one 5-gallon paint stir stick, 3 of these wood hanging stars from Dollar Tree, and I am going to use one of the chunky stars for the top. So the first thing I'm doing is just removing all of the twine and just using a little bit of wood filler to fill in the holes where the string was. This dries really quickly and you can sand it or paint right over it. So fill those in and then let that dry. Now I'm going to use 3 different Waverly chalk paints that are all shades of green. This first one is Celery. It's a light sage green from Waverly. So painting the front and also the edges of this first star. For my second star, I'm going to use the darker sage green called Moss. Again, painting the front and the edges. And for my third star, I'm going to use this fern. It's kind of a dark forest green, but has some yellow to it. So 3 different greens. If you don't have Waverly, you can just get the little 50-cent acrylic paints from Walmart or craft store and just go with 3 different shades of green. And next for my trunk, I'm using one of these 5-gallon paint sticks and I'm just painting it with Truffle. It's just a dark brown. Then once my stars were dry, I did take that truffle that was still on my brush and just kind of distressed it around all the edges of each of my stars and just gave it a little bit more of a farmhouse look. Once it dried, I did then take my little sander and rough it up, lighten up some of the dark spots, and also exposed a little bit of the natural wood that we started with. Once I was done sanding the edges, I did take these to the garage and give them a coat of a matte clear spray. Then just using my hot glue gun, you can see how I'm overlapping the top one there, kind of over the top part of the next star, and just layering them. So I have celery, then fern, then moss, and I'm just creating a Christmas tree out of my painted stars. Then once I had the stars glued together, go ahead and glue the paint stick to the back, leaving enough at the bottom for a little bit of a trunk. And then I did take this chunky white star from Dollar Tree and glued it to the top. You could use really whatever star shapes that you want for this, but I love how simple it is, and I love that it's items you can find right now at Dollar Tree. For my second DIY today, I'm going to make a Christmas tree hanging sign in the shape of an oval using this oval wood plaque from Dollar Tree, some Scrabble tiles, some twine, and these aluminum cookie sheets from Dollar Tree. I don't end up using the scrapbook paper in this project. So for my oval, I decided I wanted my background to be dark stained wood. So I'm using my antique wax, brushing it on and wiping off the excess. I did end up doing both the front and the back and the edges just so it looked nice and finished. Next, I'm going to cut out a triangle from the cookie sheet. You can see I cut the edge there, and then I cut in at about 4 inches, and then I'm going to make a dot at 2 inches so I know where the middle point is, and then I'm going to make 2 diagonal lines from the top point down to either side of my 4-inch line. Be very careful when you are cutting this aluminum cookie sheet. They are very sharp and I don't want you to cut yourself. So be very careful, but it is very easy to cut with scissors. So I'm just cutting out this triangle, and this is going to be the Christmas tree for our sign. Also be very careful when you put hot glue on the metal triangle because it does get really hot through the metal. So put some hot glue on, and then I glued it down. It was too hot to touch, so I used my scissors to press it down and get that right there on the oval. Then I took 2 Scrabble tiles to make the trunk of my Christmas tree, and I glued them sideways and then stacked 2 on top of each other. You can also see I drilled a hole at the top of my oval. If you don't have a drill, no problem. You can always glue on some jute twine on the back for your hanger. This is a Dollar Tree star that I had left over, but you can get stars all the time at Walmart or Hobby Lobby or Michael's. Then using some Scrabble tiles, I'm spelling out the word peace. You can see I'm using the E there to make a nice spacer between my trunk and where I'm going to line up the letters for the word peace. So once I have the A in place, I can just do the C and the E to the right, and then I will do the E and the P to the left, and I have a nice straight word with a perfect spacing from the trunk. I love the neutral colors of this sign. Of course, if you wanted to make yours more colorful, just use a different color of paint for your plaque. I'm taking a double length of jute twine, putting it through the hole and then back through the loop. That's one way you can make a straight hanger. And then after I apply a little bit of Scotch tape to the ends, I'll be able to put my beads on my string a lot easier. So I'm going to use white, gray, and natural beads and just put a few on my string, tie a knot, and then I have a little place to hang it, and it's also decorated with the beads. If you're stopping by my channel for the first time today, welcome. I'm so glad that you found me. I hope you'll consider sticking around by hitting that subscribe button. And to all of you who are returning viewers or subscribers, thank you so much for your support of my channel. For today's third DIY, I am making a nativity sign. I'm using a thrifted frame, some 1-gallon paint sticks, some tumbling tower blocks, one of my magnolia stencils, these little wood plugs. This is just going to be put it together with lots of different things, and I love how this turned out. So I love thrifting frames, especially wood ones that are easy to paint. Here I figured out that I need 13 of the 1-gallon paint sticks to fit across the back of this frame. So we're basically going to put a backing on the frame. I did need to cut about 1 inch off of each of the paint sticks. So I love my little miter box with my saw. It's really easy to use and I can just use it anywhere in the office. So cutting the 1 inch off all of those paint sticks, and then they will be the right size to be able to fit inside the frame. Now I decided to do kind of a black stain effect. So I took a little bit of my Waverly chalk paint in the color ink, and you can see I'm adding some water, and I'm going to continue to water it down as I go. And then I'm also going to spray all my sticks so that it would maybe try to make more of a stain effect. So I keep working at it, getting them all covered, and then I do end up spraying water on them again once they're all painted black. And then you'll see how I will take a paper towel and wipe off the excess to kind of get that wood grain to show through right there a little bit more. Then once the paint sticks were dry, I'm going to use hot glue and just run a bead of it along that edge and stick down my paint sticks. I do go back and forth so that the notches there are at the top, and then the next one, the notches will be at the bottom. This just kind of evens out where those tiny little holes are, and really once you decorate the front, you're not even going to see those. So getting them all in there so that the entire back of our frame is filled in. Then once all the paint sticks were in, I did take my hot glue gun and run a bead of hot glue all the way around just to make sure that our paint sticks were good and secured to the frame. Now I'm going to take 12 tumbling tower blocks and I'm going to glue them in sets of 3. And we're going to use these to make the stable for the nativity scene. Going to glue those together with my Titebond wood glue, and then once they're dry, we're going to come back and paint them. Now this is one of the wood plank squares from Dollar Tree that's in Crafter's Square. I did trim it down just a little bit with my saw, but I'm going to now put the antique wax on it, brush it on, and then again, wipe away the excess. I love when I can see the wood grain showing through. I am just going to do the front of this one because you won't see the back. It's going to get glued down. Now that our sticks of tumbling tower blocks are dry, I'm going to paint those with that dark brown Truffle chalk paint. Going to do the front, the sides, and the ends. Don't worry about the back because again, you're not going to see them. For my star, for my nativity, I decided to use one of these glittery foam stars that were out at Patriotic Time, 4th of July. You can use whatever star you'd like though. For this sign, I am going to use one of my reusable stencils from Magnolia Design Company. I got these at Christmas time last year or before Christmas, and I loved the saying, "A child is born." So I'm just attaching this down, sticking it down to my wood plank there, and just using the chalk paste, going across it. Now this is a Christmas stencil, and normally you would have to wait a little while to get this, but at Magnolia, the vault is opening on Wednesday, July 13th, a lot of fall and Christmas stencils are going to be available. So if you're interested, be watching my Monarch Mom DIY Facebook group. And I love this effect, taking this palette knife, I think it's called, just putting a little bit of the paste on there and running it across the edges. I just love how it kind of frames it out and gives it a rustic look. Once this was completely dry, I did give the whole sign a little spray of my clear matte spray. And remember, you can add wording to your sign using lots of different methods, sticker letters, just printing something. So I just chose to use the stencil. Now I have that black background of the sign, and so I wanted to lighten up these pieces that are going to make our stable. So I dry brushed some white chalk paint over them, and it did just the trick. You can still tell that they're dark, but they will stand out better now from the background. So this is how I'm laying everything out. I'm going to put my plaque that has the wording on it from the stencil at the top. And then you can see my 4 sticks of the tumbling tower blocks will make my little house shape or my stable. And then we'll move down towards the bottom after I get these glued down, and you'll see how I made Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus in the little manger. So for Mary and Joseph, each of them, I used 1.5 tumbling tower blocks. I just cut 1.5 on my miter box. For Joseph, he is standing, so he's standing 1.5 blocks tall. For Mary, she's kind of kneeling, so right under her head is 1 tumbling tower block, and then I have the other one kind of laying down like her legs, like if she was kneeling. To make the manger, I took a clothespin from Dollar Tree and took the spring off, and then just glued the 2 pieces in a little X shape, and then just used 3 wood plugs from, I believe, Hobby Lobby. You can get them all the time at craft stores. And then the final touch was to fill in that little gap in the roof by gluing our white foam star that we painted, and I love how this turned out. This was something that just kind of evolved as I was creating it. I love all the different wood textures. I love the neutral colors, and I hope you guys like it too. If you love budget home decor DIY videos like this, please give this video a thumbs up. It lets YouTube know that people are enjoying my content, and they will show it to more and more viewers. For DIY number 4, we are going to make a red truck that stands up using 2 of these cardboard type of trucks from Crafter's Square, 2 of the wood crates, and some of these skinny sticks. Now, these are available. They're non-seasonal. They're just like a thick pressed cardboard. And I'm just painting the truck part with my crimson Waverly chalk paint. You can see I have the trucks going 2 different directions. I tried doing this project with the wood trucks that Dollar Tree also has, but it's really hard to get the 3-dimensional pieces off without breaking it. So these were a great option. And then I'm using a black paint marker to color in the wheels. And we're going to leave the rails for the back of the truck just how they are, because we're actually going to add to them. So paint your trucks, 1 going each direction, and then fill in the tires. Now for the 2 wood crates, I painted 1 of them crimson and I left the other one natural, and then I'm gluing them together like this. The red one is upside down and the natural one is right side up. Now I'm going to put some glue on the side of my crates, and then I'm going to glue it down to my truck. I did paint the red on both sides of my truck because you would see it, but I didn't bother doing the tires on both sides. So you can see where I have the red crate starting at the front of the truck, and then the natural one takes over kind of right where that first set of rails sticks up. And then I'm going to glue the other truck in exactly the same place on the other side. Now you could leave the truck as it is, but I had these skinny flat sticks from Walmart and I just had to trim them a tiny little bit, and they fit perfectly over the side rails of the bed of the truck. And then I did cut 3 little pieces to glue on top of those cross pieces. So I did do this on both sides of the truck. And here's our finished red truck. I love that you could keep this out year round, but for Christmas, you can put florals in the back, or you can even put wrapped candies like Hershey Kisses. If you are on Facebook, please head over to my Monarch Mom DIY Facebook page, as I will also be sharing DIYs there and going live on my Facebook page as well. For DIY number 5, we are going to make some Christmas tag ornaments using this pair of tags from Dollar Tree, some beads, some tumbling tower blocks, scrapbook paper, and these graphics that are from jenniferpugh.com. She is the artist that did some of the Dollar Tree calendars a few years back. You can order these sheets right on her website. So I decided to use the back side of the tags. I'm going to leave the other side black, and I'm putting a layer of Mod Podge on the 2 tags and letting that dry completely. If you guys have watched me for a little while, you know I love this method of Mod Podging. Now these were my 4 pictures that I cut out that I was kind of trying to decide which ones I was going to use. I did want to raise them up from the surface of the tag though, so I'm taking some tumbling tower blocks, and 3 of these pretty much perfectly fits the size of the graphics. They're like 2 inches, I think, in size. And so I originally wood glued these together in sets of 3, and then I decided I wanted to make the wood a little bit bigger, so I added 1 more tumbling tower block to make it into a rectangle. Now I'm making 4 of these. I only end up using 2 of them today, but I will probably use the other 2 very soon. If you don't want to order these graphics, you can always grab up some Dollar Tree calendars to use as well. Now that my Mod Podge is dry, I'm taking my 2 different Christmas scrapbook papers. You can get these at Hobby Lobby all the time. I love to buy them when they're half price, because then for the 12 by 12, it's only 35 cents. Using my iron and some parchment paper in between, I'm going to press basically the scrapbook paper onto the tag using the dried Mod Podge adhesive. It's reactivated with the heat of the iron. So this is a great, like I said, non-messy way to Mod Podge. So I'd love it if you guys tried it out. Let me know what you think of it. Then when our paper is dry, I'm going to cut around the back side using my Fiskars fingertip knife just to get a nice crisp edge on the tags. Now you could definitely use the hole that was already on the tag. I decided I wanted to use my Crocodile Big Bite, and I'm going to punch 2 different holes kind of more in the corners of the tag. This is a wonderful tool. It will punch pretty easily through these tags, and it should be located in my Amazon storefront if you're interested. Now I'm taking 2 of those sets of tumbling tower blocks and I'm giving them a coat of Fern chalk paint. This is going to be kind of the background for our 2 graphics that we chose for this project. I then took my brush with the green paint still on it and decided to distress the edges of my 2 tags. So you can see there, I'm just kind of taking it around my wood grain looking tag and then also the red plaid. Then once my tumbling tower blocks were dry, I'm taking Mod Podge and putting a layer on it, and I am just going to then press my little graphic right into the center of that rectangle. And I like this because it gives it a little bit of the green edging on the 2 sides. Then once the Mod Podge was dry, again, I'm using my Fisker's fingertip knife on the back side to trim away the excess paper from the graphic. Using some jute twine then, I'm going to, I believe, double it over. Actually, I think I used 3 lengths and tie a knot after I put some tape on the one end. I decided I wanted my knots to be on the back, and then I'm stringing on this red plaid tag. I'm just using natural and white colored beads, getting those on there. And then once I have as many beads as I want, yep, sometimes you got to take your scissors and poke that hole a little bit bigger in your beads. And then we will take the string back through the other hole and tie another knot. And it just makes a cute little beaded hanger for your little tag sign. And we will do these beads on both of our tags. On the Joy tag, I'm going to use red and white beads. You can see I also made a little bow for each of my signs. I just wrapped the jute twine around my hand a few times and then tied that loop in the center. And when I glued it on right above the tumbling tower blocks, I noticed it kind of makes it look like a little present with a bow on it. So did that to both of my signs after gluing down the tumbling tower blocks pretty close to the center of the tag and then adding the little bow. Please check the description box below the title of this video. This is where you will find the list of all the supplies I used for these projects, as well as some important links. For DIY number 6, I'm going to make some Christmas art using an embroidery hoop, some scrapbook paper, some chipboard, and some twine. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this 12 by 12 sheet of chipboard and I'm going to Mod Podge over the entire thing and then let that dry. I'm going to try the ironing method to attach this scrapbook paper to the chipboard. I would say it worked okay, but I'm thinking that maybe chipboard isn't the best thing to be Mod Podging on using the iron method. Now, the next thing I did is I took some hot glue and I went all the way around my embroidery hoop. If you make this project before you glue down your embroidery hoop, trace the circle and cut out your chipboard beforehand. I struggled quite a bit to cut away the excess of the chipboard once the hoop was attached to it. It was very thick. If you used a thinner chipboard, like maybe the thickness of a cereal box or something, this would have been a lot easier, but this was really thick chipboard that I had from my scrapbook making days. So I worked at it for a little while, finally was able to get that chipboard cut into the circle of the embroidery hoop. So trace the circle and cut it out before you glue your embroidery hoop down. Now I'm going to make 3 triangle trees, kind of like we did with the aluminum foil pan in earlier in this video. So I'm just deciding how tall I want each of my trees, and then using the same method where I find the middle point and then cut from the point down to each of the bottom corners. I think that makes sense. So this one, you can see I've got the corner and I'm going to cut straight up to the top point. Then turning our scrapbook paper, now I'm cutting from the top point of the tree down to the right bottom corner. Now to make my 3 trees thicker and sturdier, I am Mod Podging them to a second sheet of the chipboard and gluing those down, and then I do end up going over the top of them with Mod Podge as well. So lining up the bottom of my triangle along the edge of the chipboard was a really easy way to make it nice and straight. So I'm going to do that to all 3 of my triangle trees. Then once my triangle trees were completely dry, I did take some heavy duty scissors and cut those out from the chipboard. Next, I'm going to first glue my largest tree with some hot glue right inside my embroidery hoop, a little bit to the left of center. And then the other 2, I'm trying to figure out how to layer them. I do want to give some dimension to this project, so at least one of the trees is going to be raised. And the way I did that was by gluing a tumbling tower block to the back of each of my other 2 trees. Now the striped tree, the tumbling tower block is laying flat, and on this tree with the checks, I did it on its side, so it makes it stand up even further. And that is how I layered them in the hoop. Now I had this wooden joy word. I think this was from Hobby Lobby last year, but there's lots of different ways you can add a word to your project using Scrabble tiles, using these wood sticker letters or words from Hobby Lobby. There was the word joy on there, but I have already used it. So this is just what I had on hand, but lots of different ways you can add a word, and I painted that with the fern green. Then taking some of this red and white baker's twine that is in the Crafter's Square craft aisle at Dollar Tree, I'm just going to wrap it a few times around the bottom. Now, because this is a circle, you do have to secure the string on the sides there. Otherwise, it's just going to keep sliding down. And here's the finished product. I love all the different textures and dimensions. And you can find these embroidery hoops a lot of times at thrift stores, or you can buy them new. Thanks again so much for joining me today. Please let me know in the comments which of these projects was your favorite, and we'll see you soon. Bye.